What are some of the pros and cons to living and consuming cooked plant-based meals as opposed to eating raw plant-based meals? Welcome back, you guys, for another video to recalibrate with Raw Natty Nate. And I wanted to go through some of the pros and cons of cooked plant-based or cooked vegan and raw vegan, raw plant-based. So let's get into it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through as many of the things that I can think about of the cons first of cooked food, and then we'll go into the pros of cooked food, and then we will go into the cons of raw food and end with the pros of raw food. So let's give it a go. Starting off with cooked food, okay? Some of the cons are it takes time to cook the meals. Just like anything, you know, you've got to prepare the meals. You're making homemade pizza, or you're doing some burgers, or, you know, you're doing lasagna, or, you know, something like that. It takes time. It's time to cook it. You got a little more prep time, which can lead into another con, which is the cleanup. The cleanup could be kind of intense, especially if you're cooking with butters and, you know, different oils and stuff. It's very messy, very gooey, and I kind of would find myself when I was eating cooked plant-based, I would put like parchment paper down on a cookie sheet and cook all my stuff on there, you know, or bake it or whatever, and then I could just throw the parchment paper away and I wasn't having to like scrub the cookie sheet. Okay, so another con to cooked food is it's very dehydrating. Dehydrating on the system. The body's pulling water and different moisture to move the substance through our digestive tract. It's definitely, you know, dehydrating, which also could lead to another con, which is constipation. You know, you're stopped up, you're not as regular, you know, and that could lead to a plethora of other kinds of issues for sure. So another con is it's because of all that's going on is it's slower to digest. Right? It's taking a bit longer to move through you because it's got to gather so much water and such to move it through you. And another thing it could be a con would be it's mucus forming. It's very mucus forming, as well as acidic in a lot of ways. You start to research some of these things, the pros and cons of different diets and lifestyles, especially when you get into, you know, the healthier aspect of things and the science of things. You start to find these things out, and some of them aren't as fun to find out. But after switching my lifestyle from a cooked to a raw, I found that I was less mucusy, less stopped up, less nasally. So yeah, it's very mucus forming. That could be definitely a con. Another thing is these foods are dormant. Cooked food is a dormant food predominantly, especially if you're eating, so there's different kinds of cooked foods. You've got the cooked vegan foods, which is great for the animals. No animals are dying because it's vegan. There's no animal products in it, which aren't necessarily whole foods. And whole foods is what I was talking about, it being dormant. You've got your rice, your beans, your peas and lentils and you know, different kinds of grains and quinoa and buckwheat and all of these things. They're dormant foods. They have to be kind of awakened in a way through a cooking process to even ingest them. And so that can definitely be a con there. It's more like a survival food. You know, these dormant foods are great for a survival mode. If we're living in survival mode, or we're in an area where to get fresh, you know, produce and such, you know, that's one of the things that these dormant foods, they store really well, you know, which I could put that in one of the pros, but yeah, it's definitely more of a survival food. You know, being that it's survival food, it's dormant, and therefore when you cook it, you're cooking it to death, basically. It's a dead food. When we eat predominantly dead foods, we're feeding a different kind of bacteria in our gut. We're feeding the putrefactive bacteria, the bacteria that break down the dead matter. It's kind of like the dung beetle. They eat the poo, right? So we're feeding those bacteria that break down the dead matter, the dormant foods, which when we eat predominantly cooked food, our system can kind of be out of balance. And then when you go to eat, say, some fruit or a vegetable, you feel real bloated and gassy and stuff because you haven't been feeding the fiber thriving gut bacteria. And so it's harder to digest raw foods when you eat predominantly cooked foods because you've been feeding that gut bacteria, which is the putrefactive bacteria. And so I guess, I don't know, that could be, that could go either or, pro or con. Of course, they're doing us a favor. We want those guys in there because they're helping keeping us somewhat cleaned up, right? They're like the waste management team. And when we're eating a lot of things that are cooked to death, it's waste. It's food that will sustain us, survival food, but it's dead. So we need those guys in there, and they help us out to move the waste through through us. Now, with all of this heaviness and the digestion being slowed down and it being dehydrating, that's going to make us feel a little more tired. We're going to maybe need more sleep, especially if we eat like a really heavy meal for our last meal of the day, like a dinner time or something. Man, our body doesn't get much rest because it's using so much energy to digest that food. So we're going to be tired, which then is going to kind of mess with our mood. The next day we might be like, man, I'm just like tired. And then you start to find yourself maybe being a little more cranky and such. So yeah, it could affect your mood. Let's see, some of the other kind of cons would be, like if you're not eating homemade plant-based meals, a lot of time what you're going to find out in the world is more processed food. Now, being that it's cooked, plant-based, or vegan, that's great because no animals are dying and it is helping the environment in so many ways, but it's processed. And we don't really want to eat a lot of processed foods, but that's kind of the options that are out there when you're eating predominantly cooked foods. Now, when we're eating predominantly cooked foods, the taste, of course, is, to me, I feel at this point in time, because I've been raw for nearly 3 years, here in just a couple months, it'll be 3 years I've been eating a raw food lifestyle. And so I have had a couple of cooked meals in that 3-year time, and it kind of tastes bland and somewhat the same, like it all tastes the same, without adding salt and oils or sugars to certain cooked foods. It's kind of bland, so the taste really isn't there. You have to add these other ingredients to make it taste good, and it's great that they have plant-based butters, but it's processed oil. This is a water-based machine, right? We all know, like most of us know, that we're made up of mostly water. So water and oil doesn't mix, but cooked food doesn't necessarily taste that great without the oil. So it's like, oh, it's kind of a slippery slope there. Another thing about the cooked food con being is the cleanup. Cooking with these oils and such, it's messy. It's just like I find myself when I was eating cooked before, I would use the parchment paper and put stuff on the parchment paper, bake it in the oven, and then I could just throw the parchment paper away, because the cleanup is more intensive. Cooking on cast iron is a little easier to clean. You just soak it with some warm water, or you can put the water on, put it on the flame so it heats up and kind of loosens up some of the cooked meal. Unless you're cleaning up your stuff right away, right after you cook it, it's harder to clean up. But of course, when you're eating a cooked meal, you want to eat it right away because it's warm, right? That's why you did the cooked meal. So a lot of times you leave your dishes for later, and it's not as fun to clean up, especially stainless steel. My gosh, to try to keep stainless steel clean is a chore, man. So anyways, that's definitely a con. Another con would be it being so much more calorically dense, which could be a pro. We'll get into that in the next one. Is you have to kind of watch your calories. That's easier to overeat in a way because it's so much more calorically dense, right? And a lot of times you want to eat more because you're eating this cooked food. It's dead. It's dead food. Even if it's plant-based and vegan, right? Of course, vegan doesn't mean health food, but if you're eating whole food, plant-based, it's dead food when you're cooking it. So your body is like, yo man, keep it coming. I still haven't got any nutrients. Like, when are you gonna feed me something of some sort of nutrient? So you're having to eat more, which means you have to kind of watch your calories. And then sometimes you're like, oh, I better really like watch what's going on. And sometimes you find yourself having to restrict calories. And that's not really that much fun. Like, you don't want to have to restrict yourself. So yeah, you kind of have to, like, you know, portion control. That's, you know, there's several different aspects to having a balanced, cooked, whole food, plant-based lifestyle. Another really funky con is, what do they call it? Acrylamides, like cooking things with high temp. It turns to acrylamides. Like they say, you know, olive oil is not necessarily terrible to ingest in its raw state, but when you cook it, there's just certain things that happen when you cook your food that aren't as healthy for the water-based machine. All right, so there are some of the cons, and if you guys can think of anything, another con that you want to add, kick it in the comments below, because maybe we'll make another video like this, because it's always fun to, you know, update and revise videos, right? And this is a good one. So anyways, let's move to the pros of cooked food. There are pros to cooked food. It stores easily, right? So it's you can go get a big old bag of rice or a big old bag of beans, and buying it like that is definitely the way to go. It stores easily. You could stick it in the cupboard for like a year, right? Of course, it's, you know, being that it's a dormant food and it stores easily, it's more of a survival food, it's cheaper. So that's another pro, is it's cheaper in a way to eat cooked whole foods. It's also convenient. It's convenient because it's like everywhere. You can go into little stores and little markets, and you can most likely find some sort of cooked food that doesn't have animal products in it. So it's more convenient in a lot of ways, which also leads to fast food. You know, fast food's not as healthy. There are a lot of vegan options out there, which is just so awesome that we are coming up with so many more options because we're voting for it. We're like, hey, I don't necessarily want that. I want plant-based options. So a lot of fast food companies are coming up with different plant-based options, vegan options. So that's also convenient in a lot of ways. Yeah, so it also tastes good because some of these fast food products are like, it's a science project, and they dial in the SOS, right? The salt, oil, sugar mixture, which gives us that dopamine release in the brain, and we're like, give me more. So it tastes good. But of course, the reason it does taste good is because it's either designed that way, or we're adding oils and salt and different flavors and stuff to it. So yeah, and it's easier to, you know, feel kind of satiated. That could be another pro. You're feeling full from it. Sometimes maybe you're not feeling as full. Like if you had I did have a Beyond Burger with my kid. I wanted to see what the hype was all about, and I'm like, let's just try it out, you know. And I got the low carb one with the lettuce bun, and that's the way, when I was eating animal products before, that's the way I would do it, because you could taste the meat so much better without having the bread, right? And of course, I did no mayonnaise, no cheese, but after eating that, I didn't feel full. I wanted more. So in a way, you can feel a little more satiated, but in some ways, I don't know, that's kind of a slippery slope. But in a lot of ways, you know, cooked food will definitely help you fill up. Big old plate of potatoes, big old plate of rice and lentils, definitely more satiating. Yeah, and like I was saying, you get that dopamine hit. You know, it's kind of like, come on, feed it to me. Another pro would be, it's easier to hang out with friends and family. You know, you're going to a gathering, and it's like we all want to chew together, basically. We just all want to like hang out. We want to see each other chewing this. A lot of times we want to see each other chewing the same things. But say you have a lot of family members and friends that don't eat plant-based, but you eat plant-based, that's okay. because it's not like as extreme. Like if you know, someone's making a big old pot of mashed potatoes, you know, you could be like, hey, unless you're cooking it yourself, right? You do it how you want. But if a family member's doing it, you're like, hey, can you, you know, leave out the butter and the milk, you know, and just, you know, set like a bowl aside for me and I'll do mine up. Just, you know, let's just boil, once the boiled potatoes are done, you know, I'll mix it up myself. So either way, whatever, it's easier to hang out with people when you're eating cooked plant-based or cooked vegan. Restaurants too, another pro is like there's so many epic restaurants in the world, like a beautiful ambiance, you know, sitting outside or how it's set up inside. And a lot of these restaurants are providing much more plant-based or vegan options. So that's convenient as well, right? It's easy to be able to go out with friends and family and not have it be as much of a chore to order like a delicious plant-based or vegan meal. Another thing is, that being said, with the restaurants is there's so many more recipes available online or books on how to create delicious plant-based or vegan meals. Yeah, and so that's definitely a pro. Another pro could be it kind of numbs your emotions. You know, a lot of times we don't want to have to deal with certain things that are going on in our life, and we use different substances, and food is definitely a substance, to keep ourselves numb. And so it like numbs our emotions. We can definitely, from personal experience, I would find myself kind of turning to food to keep myself just kind of emotionally numb. All right, so anyways, cons of cooked food, pros of cooked food. Let's get on over to the raw side of things, and we'll start with the cons of raw. Okay, so some of the cons of raw is that it's the recipes are a little more complicated. If you're eating, say, something that's a little more gourmet, we're not used to cooking these kinds of foods, or I shouldn't say cooking, we're not used to preparing raw foods, so it can be a little more complicated because we're not used to it. Of course, over time, it becomes easier and easier, but yeah, the recipes may be a little more complicated unless you're going with just like straight up fruit. It's like the fastest food. We'll get into that later because that's definitely a pro. But yeah, so anyways, that could be one of the cons to the raw vegan or raw plant-based lifestyle. Another con would be it's inconvenient in a lot of ways. It's not as easily accessible at certain markets or stores. Say like a little, you go to a lake or something, right? And you want to go into the little, deli or whatever. Sometimes it can be kind of tricky to find an abundance of delicious, ripe, fresh, raw foods. So in that way, it can be a little more inconvenient. Another con is that it's kind of inconsistent. One day you might go to the market and you're like, oh my gosh, this orange was so amazing, or you got a bag of oranges or a box of oranges and you're like, these oranges are awesome. And then you go like in a few days later and you're like, these oranges, like what the heck happened? I thought they were the same oranges. Like it's just not as consistent. It's inconsistent. Or like a watermelon. Those of you guys out there have eaten watermelon, you know a good watermelon as opposed to a bad watermelon. It's even from the same box. One day you might get that melon and you're like, that melon was so good, I'm going back and I'm getting two. And you go back and you get two and you crack them open and you're like, it's grainy and pethy. Like it's a little more inconsistent. Unless we figure out how to source, our fruits and vegetables, yeah, that's definitely one of the cons of raw foods. Another con would be that it's perishable. It's not going to last very long. All of us have bought lots of fresh produce and fruits, and we stock it in our shelves and on the counter or whatever, in the fridge, and we're like, it's going bad because it needs to be eaten, right? Like right away. That could be another con too, is it's it's perishable and you're having to go to the store a bit more often. But yeah, I don't know. I guess that could be kind of a pro as well, because you're getting fresh stuff if you're having to go every few days or whatever. But definitely one of the cons is it's perishable. It's not going to last like a bag of rice in the cupboard. it being perishable, it's a little more expensive. The prices can fluctuate. I remember going to the store not too long ago and like they had these seeded green grapes and they were 99 cents a pound. 99 cents a pound. I'm like, give me 6 bags, you know? Go back the next week hoping that I'd find that same deal, and no, they were, I think they were $3.50 a pound. Same grapes. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what happened, but you know, definitely in certain ways can be more expensive. So yeah, definitely one of the, I gotta eat this orange. I can't just play with it the whole time. So yeah, definitely one of the cons there. Okay, what are some other cons of raw food? If you guys can think of anything, like I said, I don't know if I said this, I think I was maybe thinking it. Maybe I did say it. Leave me some comments below of some of the pros to cook food and the cons to raw food that you guys can think of if I'm missing some of the things. Another con would be you're going to the bathroom more. You're eliminating more. That can kind of be a con in a lot of ways if you're, you know, having to, go to the bathroom more frequently. That's kind of can hinder your day in a lot of ways. Another con is there's no stimulants in raw foods. Of course, you might get a little sugar rush from your fruit, but there's not a lot of added oils and preservatives and such, which can kind of be like a stimulant. So that can kind of be a con as well, I guess. Another con would be if you're eating a lot of raw foods and you're new to it, you might find yourself wanting to be alone more, or feeling lonely because people don't really understand what maybe you're understanding at this point in time about the power of raw foods and why you want to incorporate more raw foods into your life. So it can kind of be lonely in a way, not as, you know, easy to hang out with friends and family and loved ones, and which can be another con. And on top of that would be going to restaurants. It's not as easy to find delicious raw meals that are the way you like it, especially if you're going oil-free. You know, sometimes you're having to kind of critique the menu and figure out different ways to order, which can kind of be a little, you know, kind of a bummer sometimes in a way. But if you make it fun, go through the menu. What we do is we go through the menu and figure out, oh my gosh, they have all of these different, you know, I see this meal and this meal that have raw foods. And then you ask the waiter, hey, can the chef make me something special? I eat predominantly raw foods, or I eat raw foods, you know, or maybe you don't want to like sound weird. You're like, I'm trying this new diet. And of course, a lot of restaurants are very acceptable of different dietary selections, especially this day and age, you know, gluten-free or paleo, keto, or, you know, whatever, you're going raw. So you just say, hey, can I get a big old salad? And, you know, can you add lots of extra carrots and cucumbers and whatever else? So you can always find a salad at restaurants for the most part. Some of the dressings that you could do in a restaurant would be salsa, avocado smashed up in a bowl with some lemon and maybe a little pepper and a tiny bit of salt or something. Hot sauce, you know, maybe you can, you know, throw a little hot sauce in there, which, you know, a lot of hot sauces are cooked, but it's a tiny little amount. It's not gonna maybe throw you off your path. One of the things is if you do get thrown off the path for a second, let's just say you're hiking on a trail and you're like, the trail starts to kind of fade for a second. You're off the trail. You're like, what the heck? You don't just like stay off the trail, just keep tromping through the woods. You get back on the trail, you know? So anyways, yeah, restaurants could be kind of tricky. Another con could be you're not numbing yourself with cooked foods, and you're kind of starting to release different emotions. You're going through different emotions. Stuff's coming up because a lot of times we suppress our emotions with food or drugs or drink. And so these emotions start to arise when you're eating predominantly raw foods. If you're going like 100% raw, 100% is like really hard, of course, you know, like, you know, there's certain ingredients you might want to incorporate in your recipes or whatnot that aren't raw. But if you're living predominantly raw, there's definitely going to be some certain emotions that are going to come up, and that can be kind of a con as well as a pro. Like that could be a pro as well. You know, because you're facing certain things that maybe it's time to face right now. So anyways, that being said, let's get over to the pros of raw food. Some of the pros of raw food is you're releasing these emotions. You're dealing with certain things that have been locked away in certain parts of yourself, and that can be very healing. Another pro to raw food is it's very healing. Like people heal themselves from all kinds of ailments. Heck, my mom reversed her stage 4 stage 4 kidney cancer with raw foods. And I met a guy who actually who really inspired me after watching what my mom did. I've got a YouTube video interviewing my mom about her journey, which she's still cancer-free and she's still raw. But I met a guy skiing who really snapped me into a wake-up mode. He reversed his stage 4 colorectal cancer at the age of 42, and I'm riding with him on the ski lift, and he's like, yep, I've been a raw foodie for 44 years. So I'm like looking at him like, you're 86, bro? Like he was 86 years old, but eating living foods, he said. I've been a raw foodie, eating living foods, sprouted foods for 44 years. Very healing. Amazing. Definitely a pro. So, yeah. Another pro would be that you're feeding yourself like the proper food in a lot of ways. And so that's, you're getting these probiotics. And you're feeding the fiber thriving gut bacteria. And like we were saying, you know, on the other side, these bacteria help us in a lot of ways. They are not necessarily being starved and overcrowded by the waste management team. And these are the guys, like, it's interesting because raw foods like leafy greens aren't digestible. And a lot of people will like maybe even scare you, be like, you can't digest lettuce and you know, this kind of thing. Well, when we eat these kinds of foods, it's for our good gut biome. It's for those good gut bacteria, the fiber thriving gut bacteria. And so that's a pro, definitely a pro. That's what's going to help us stay healthier. Another pro would be it's super hydrating. You're going to be moving, you know, food through yourself a lot quicker. Your fiber thriving guys are getting fed. It's got lots of water in it. You're not having to pull water from yourself, so you're eliminating easier. That's another pro. You're not having to, you know, like grin and bear it, you know, to try to move something through your colon. it's eliminating easier. Definitely another pro. It's easier in your digestion, right? So all of these things are pros to eating predominantly raw foods. Another pro would be that it's abundant. You can eat abundance of raw foods. You don't have to necessarily watch what you're eating. If you're eating properly, balanced raw food lifestyle, not lots of nuts and seeds and nut butters and, you know, and cashew cheesecake. There's a lot of like delicious raw desserts and high fatty foods out there. So when you're not eating that way and you're eating just whole, ripe, fresh fruits and vegetables, you can literally eat as much as you want. It's very low calorie, so you don't have to calorie restrict. But one of the things you have to keep in mind, and I guess I should have put this in the con, is you have to eat so much more. You have to eat so much more of this food. But, right, that's abundance. You're living in abundance. You're not having to restrict yourself. So that's a pro. Another pro would be it's the fastest food on earth, man. This is Mother Nature's fast food right here. Literally. Like, look at it. I'm just gonna peel this puppy. Look at this, look at how fast this is. You know, if you have a melon, slice the melon in half, boom, breakfast is ready. So it's super fast food, it's nature's fast food, so delicious. And it being water rich like this, and say you blend up a smoothie in the blender, you don't have to worry about it sitting on the counter and getting cold, right? Because it's a smoothie. So you rinse out your blender, literally just rinse it out. So the cleanup is so easy. That's another pro. It's so easy to clean up after yourself with raw foods. If you're cutting something on a cutting board, you rinse and dry off the cutting board and you rinse and wipe off the knife, boom, done. Cleanup is so easy. So that's definitely another pro. Gosh, it just like tastes so good, you guys. Another pro would be it's liquid sunshine. It's purified water. It's what do they call it? Structured water. H3O2. It's structured water. It's synergistic water. It's purified liquid sunshine. So it's delicious. Another pro would be that it's designed for us. Literally, when you eat raw, you're eating from the tree, the bush, or the vine, and it's designed for us. We're one of the only species that can see in the red spectrum, and we've got the opposable thumb, right? So we can see which one's ripe up there in the tree. That one, boom, and you pick it. It's like made for us. We don't make our own vitamin C. We don't have to. We eat the fruits. We got it. It's nature's perfect food. So that definitely is a huge pro. Not only that, the more that we're growing trees, bushes, and vines, the more carbon monoxide they're breathing in, which is what we exhale. They breathe in our breath and they breathe out oxygen, which is what we breathe. Like it's literally like it's amazing. How amazing is that? Like, oh my gosh, it's literally nature's perfect food designed for us. And we can heal ourselves, we can heal this planet by planting more. It's just phenomenal. So that's definitely a super big pro. Another thing is having all these good feelings makes us feel creative. And maybe we spend a little more time lining up our dishes to look pretty, right? Because we eat with our eyes. And we're learning something new. You know, it's a whole new world. A whole new world. Just watched Aladdin the other day, so sorry about that. Anyways, it's really fun. It can be really fun because you're creating something, you know, new, and you're creating a relationship with your food because you're thinking about, I mean, not to say that you can't have a creative relationship with cooked food, but yeah, it's different because we've been eating cooked food our whole life, so we're having to think about what can we prepare that is, you know, with raw foods that is going to be delicious. And once we learn these kind of things, the fundamentals of what makes a good dressing or a good dip, which I, you know, personally use a couple people's recipe books. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And it makes it fun to be creative because you know, it's just something so new. So that's definitely another pro. Another thing would be, let's think, tastes great. That's a pro. A lot of times, especially when you're getting good ripe food or fruits and vegetables, it tastes so good. It tastes so good. So that's definitely a pro. And when we're ingesting things that taste good, and we know all of these different aspects of what these foods are actually doing for us and how they're serving us, there's a sense of pride that comes apart, or, you know, comes with it, that is a part of it, comes with it. And we have this sense of pride. We don't feel guilty because we don't have blood on our hands. We don't feel regretful because we took the life of some other being that definitely did not want to die. No being wants to die. I mean, maybe certain humans, you know, they're like, I just want to die. But creatures that we take their life, they don't want to die. And so when we're eating this way, there's a sense of pride. We're guilt-free. We don't have these regrets. And that's definitely a big pro. And when we have these feelings of pride, no regret, no guilt, our mood is lifted. We have a better mood. And that's a huge pro. I mean, it's nice to go through our day in a good mood. And when we're in a better mood, we have, I feel like, a stronger sense of self-love. We're loving ourselves because we're feeding ourselves delicious liquid sunshine, nature's perfect food. And in a way that we're releasing old emotions, locked in emotions, can kind of help us feel more in touch with our spiritual side. And that's definitely a pro. You know, we all feel the chakras align when we're around those negative ions, like going to the beach or something, right? And there's something spiritual about being in nature and surrounding ourselves with beauty and nature. And that's another thing, feeling more connected. That's a huge pro, I find. And we can also feel lighter, right? Not so weighed down, not so heavy. That's definitely a pro. Who doesn't want to feel lighter, right? You know, you wake up those certain mornings and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel great. And maybe, you know, you ate a bunch of raw foods for the last 3 months, you know, so you're feeling great. I've been practicing this lifestyle for nearly 3 years, and I definitely feel great. It's wonderful. The body, you know, goes back to homeostasis. It's constantly striving to be in homeostasis, right? Your body knows what to do. You cut yourself, your hand, so to speak, and your hand heals itself. And when we get out of the body's way, we're not like rubbing dirt or salt into the wound, getting it infected. It just goes back to the way it naturally should be. Yeah, another pro is the colors. The colors of raw foods are so delicious. And there's so many raw foods. There's so many fruits. Like, I'm learning so many of these different fruits that I never knew existed. There's hundreds of fruits that exist that we have no idea. Like, we got fruit from Miami Fruit, and I'll put a link in here for their website. They grow amazing fruit, jackfruit, you know, durian, you know, different avocados and different sapotes, the chocolate sapote and the mamey sapote, and this right here, this is egg fruit. Have you guys ever seen egg fruit? This is amazing. It's like a birthday cake flavor, right? Kind of dry, kind of like the consistency of like a hard-boiled egg yolk. Not when it's gray, but when it's this color, right? So that's kind of a trippy combination, picturing like an egg yolk and having it be that consistency of the egg yolk, kind of dry, but tasting like birthday cake. Egg fruit, man, like, it's incredible. And you can order fruit from Miami Fruit and shipped right to your house. Like, we had a box shipped to us. That's where we got this egg fruit, because we're like, hey, you know, let's treat ourselves to some of these delicious exotic fruits, and we can have it shipped right to our doorstep. And that's pretty awesome. We're living in an amazing day and age, you guys. It's incredible. So that's kind of like what I've got so far, you guys. If you can think of any other pros, leave them in the comments below. You know, what do you guys think about this video? Hopefully you got some good insights from it. If you're new to the channel, welcome. And if you've made it this far into the video, give yourself a thumbs up for that. That's super cool. Kick the like button if you like this video, and hit the subscribe button for more, you know, to have more videos like this come to you. You can hit the little bell notification, and that notification will tell you when I upload a new video, which I'm striving to make daily videos for you guys. Yeah, so anyways, you guys, another thing I wanted to say is some of these books that I use. This is one of my favorite books right here. This is my wife's book, Plant-Based Dips and Dressings. And if you don't know about my story, it's a pretty amazing story. And I'll put a tag up here for you guys to click on and watch that video. After my mom reversed, I'll give you a little recap. After my mom reversed her kidney cancer and I met that guy John on the ski resort, I was like, I have to learn more about raw foods. And I went home and I found Lissa from Raw Food Romance on YouTube, binged watched her videos, bought her recipe book, her volume 1 meal plan. This is her plant-based dips and dressings, which has all kinds of delicious dips and dressings, and how to make like cashew cheese and different thick creamy sauces. It's amazing. But her meal plan was so cool because I didn't have to think about, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna feed myself? I don't wanna just have a smoothie and, you know, a plain salad, you know, and a watermelon or whatever every single day. So it really helps to find recipe books. And what was so cool about her book is it's 30 days of breakfast, lunch, and dinner each day being different. There's 30 breakfasts, there's 30 lunches, there's 30 dinners, and she gives you the ingredient list and the shopping list and the kind of gear, so to speak, like what you're gonna need that day, whether it be a dehydrator or a blender. Since then, she's come up with 2 other meal plans, so she has a total of 3 meal plans, and the volume 3 doesn't require a dehydrator, and these kind of things really help when you wanna transition. Say these are the steps, right? We go from eating animal products, putting on a different lens, a different perspective. I don't know if you guys saw my rant video. I'm going to be doing some more of those because they're kind of fun. Maybe I'll put a tag up here for you guys to check out that video, but I talk about these different lenses that we put on. So we take off the animal-based lens and we put on a vegan lens, and we start transitioning from vegan, and then we transition to more whole plant foods cooked. And then we think, wow, the power of raw foods. Maybe there's something that draws you to raw foods. Maybe that's why you're here and you're watching this video right now. Maybe you're talking to yourself through me, right? And these kinds of books help in so many ways because it takes the thinking out of it. You just literally follow along. And that's one thing that we really like in this life, is when we don't know something, we want to be shown the way. And you know, so we have, my wife and I both, you know, like I said, well, I'll put our love story up. I married her. She was my YouTube star. I bought her book. I was a fanboy, and now we're married, and we're making videos to try to help you guys understand and be inspired and motivated to move to a more compassionate, healthful lifestyle. Another thing I wanted to say, if you guys are wondering about the gear that I'm wearing, I love this stuff. This is, you know, peace, love, and seasonal fruit. And this hat right here is from my buddy Chris Kendall, the Raw Advantage. I'll tag him in here, maybe put a link below to his page. He also has amazing recipe books, how to make raw pizza, you know, like cinnamon rolls, which are just amazing. I mean, next level stuff. So these are the things that I use to help me stay in this realm, in this lifestyle. And just a little thing about Chris Kendall from the Raw Advantage. He's been living a raw food lifestyle for nearly 15 years. He's jacked, stacked, long blonde hair, tattooed up, surfer, pro skater. He was almost pro skater, thriving on a raw food lifestyle. But he's very balanced, right? He's not extreme. He's not restricting himself. He's not going to eating just fruit and only fruit. There's definitely a way to thrive in this lifestyle, or to like start to deteriorate in this lifestyle, just like we could in any lifestyle. But this is an amazing lifestyle, you guys. I hope you guys, you know, come back for some more of these videos, because like I said, we're making daily videos showing you guys how to make some of these really cool foods and how delicious they can be, how beautiful they can be. And that's why I wanted to end on the pros of raw foods, because I have literally been, like, my life's been changed from raw foods. You guys, it's powerful stuff. I get a little emotional sometimes because it's just amazing to think about like how many things have changed in my life from transitioning into eating this way. It's just like, it blows my mind. Anyways, you guys, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Leave me some comments below, some ideas of some other videos you might want to see. And you know, like I said, if you're new to the channel, welcome. You know, hit that subscribe button like I just said. Hit the little bell notifications for new videos. I know I probably already said this, but I'm super pumped. And yeah, you guys, I can also be found on different social media platforms: Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter. Raw Natty Nate. Until next time, guys. Love you.